My name is Iain Duncan Smith. I'm the Member of Parliament for Chingford and Woodford Green. Relax. I used to be a member of the Cabinet, but I'm not here to talk about politics. I'm here to talk about something much, much more interesting. Come on, James. Look.
In this film, I want to tell you about something extraordinary, about pioneering research with the potential to change how we diagnose cancer and how people living with serious illness can be helped to manage their conditions with the help of this lot and their absolutely remarkable sense of smell.
Dogs like these are capable of detecting the tiniest of odour concentrations. I mean, up to 1 part per trillion, maybe even more. What does that actually mean? Well, imagine 1 teaspoonful of sugar dissolved not just in 1 Olympic-sized swimming pool, but in 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools, and the dogs can detect that.
That means that once properly trained, they are able to detect odours associated with disease in human beings.
In other words, these dogs are capable of literally sniffing out disease.
Experts agree that early detection is the most important factor in surviving cancer, and the research that's being conducted here offers an opportunity for us to drastically improve the early detection of the disease. In this test, a specially trained cancer detection dog is told to circle a carousel holding 8 evenly spaced urine samples. 1 is from a patient with prostate cancer, and the other 7 are from healthy individuals.
Indication 4.
Remarkably, the dog is able to detect the sample from the cancer patient.
Here we come.
Well, that was absolutely amazing. I mean, I have never seen anything like that. How do you actually get the dogs to do all that, to train, to make sure they check the right samples? How does that all come about?
Well, all of our work is based in positive reinforcement. So what that means is the dog wants to come in here and actually search these samples to get paid for it. He understands that the particular smell, this volatile signature of prostate cancer that you've seen, quite a unique smell, actually means reward to him. So he gets a sound for it and the dog gets food.
Is there a level of reliability? Is there a certain number or a certain percentage of times that if a dog isn't indicating or getting it right, that you say, do you know what, I can't use that dog? Well, what is that? What is that line?
Well, when we're looking at the development of the dog, we're looking really reliability of 85–90%. We might need to make sure the dog is operating at that level. Indication 6.
Good girl. I heard these remarkable stories about...
As Chief Executive of the charity Medical Detection Dogs, Dr. Clare Guest is a leading figure in driving this research forward. In fact, her interest in this area began after she was alerted by her own dog to a potentially life-threatening condition.
One of my dogs, Daisy, she's a bladder cancer detection dog. She started to behave a little bit differently around me. She started to sort of give me a worried look, and then she started nudging at my chest. It led me to investigate. I found a lump. I went to the doctors and was referred, and to cut a long story short, I was diagnosed with a very early stage and grade breast cancer.
I was fascinated by Clare's story, but I wanted to be absolutely sure that the research being undertaken by Clare's team was meeting the highest scientific standards.
How reliable do you think the science is? How robust are you?
So this is really, really rigorous work. We don't know exactly what it is the dogs use to make the identification that cancer's there, but we know it's a volatile, we know it's a smell.
In fact, studies recently published in France, Italy and elsewhere have confirmed the extraordinary potential of dogs to assist with the diagnosis of disease in human beings, and Clare's team is working on one of the largest studies to date.
We're doing an incredibly robust clinical trial. We've got 3,000 patients going to be involved in this next trial detecting prostate cancer from urine. Over the next few years we'll find out the results and the ability of the dog to do this over this large sample patient size.
So what do you say to those clinicians that I've heard before who say, oh, well, you know, the thing is, that's all very nice and all very well, but we can't have dogs running around in GP surgeries, you know, just sniffing everybody. That's ludicrous. And the other thing they say is, this is a matter of life and death. You know, can't have dogs involved in life and death. It's far too serious for that. How do you get through that kind of barrier, in a sense of kind of prejudice? How do you get through that and show them that this is pure science?
Well, there's a number of ways, in fact. Firstly, the dog doesn't have to be in the hospital sniffing around the patient. The samples come to the dogs in the training facility, dogs give their answer, result goes back to the clinician. The second thing is that although the dog has a fluffy coat and a waggy tail, he is in fact a highly sophisticated biosensor. You know, evolution has given him this highly sensitive nose, go down to parts per trillion. So we're talking about a science here, we're not talking about just sort of fluffy dogs. The other thing is that I'd say to you as well, you know, you rely on dogs every day when you go into the House of Commons. You rely on the dogs to ensure your safety. People board planes every day that have been screened by detector dogs to see if there's explosives on board. That's a life and death decision. Why do we rely on them there and yet not in assisting us with help?
So how much support has the government been giving you? Where do you think the future lies in that?
To date, we have no support from the government.
And you think this could literally save lives?
Absolutely. I know this can save lives. It saved my life. That's inspired me to keep going. But also, I'm a scientist. I love the science behind this. We're talking about a highly robust study. We're looking at an ability of a biosensor to detect a biomarker for a disease. The biosensor's a dog, but that doesn't make any difference.
Like Claire, my interest in this research is more than academic. It's personal.
The doctor thought the lump had been there for about 18 months.
My wife, Betsy, has had breast cancer.
In many respects, I was lucky. My youngest was 16, but when I was so ill, I remember thinking, how would I have managed if it had been 10 years earlier and my children were little? I mean, I was completely written off. I was very, very ill, as you remember. Mm-hmm. I couldn't look after myself. I couldn't do anything for myself. And the sooner you can detect cancer, the better. The sooner you can detect all diseases, the better.
But this remarkable ability has implications for more than just the detection of cancer. Dogs can also be trained to alert patients with conditions such as type 1 diabetes to a minute shift in their blood sugar levels, which might, in extreme cases, signal the onset of a coma. The dogs are able to detect when a patient might be in danger and fetch any vital medical supplies.
Oh yes, he's got it now. He's going round his man.
I went to visit Steve and Molly. Steve was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 2006. It's no exaggeration to say that having Molly at his side has been life-changing for Steve and his family.
Oh, gracious me. What was life like for both of you before Molly arrived? Where were the big problems? How difficult was all of this?
Well, when Stephen was little, we'd have him just running around and then falling over. You know, we'd be sort of scooping him up and putting him on the sofa and trying to get things into him. I'd gone in the night and he'd had seizures, so we were testing every hour and a half to 2 hours, all night, every single night.
So you were getting up through the night regularly?
Setting alarms.
To check, yeah.
And we did that until Molly came along, and suddenly when we realised we could trust her, that's when we stopped, and now I only get up when she alerts. I get up to her alerts. And she comes and sits at football, doesn't she? And she alerts from the sidelines of the football pitch, whereas I used to have to call Stephen off and keep testing him. And sometimes he'd gone so low he was tripping over the ball, so he'd have to have some glucose and then sit out for 20 minutes.
So she will know in an open football pitch, and she will alert, and you will know that she is alerting that your son, who's busy just about to score a goal, has to come off the pitch to get himself sorted out.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, and she's
That's
actually
quite remarkable, isn't it?
She's got permission from all the club referees to be let loose onto the pitch with her coat on, isn't she?
Really?
But
So basically, Molly is capable of detecting at any stage, out in the fields, out in the garden, on the playing pitch. If you're upstairs and she's downstairs, she'll get as agitated down here as she would upstairs.
yeah,
Is that right?
Yeah, she knows.
Claire is also a type 1 diabetic, and she's also a beneficiary of her dog's ability to detect shifts in blood glucose levels that might indicate she's in danger.
In the 3.5 years that we've been together, he has alerted and potentially saved my life over 3,500 times. And he does it all for a dog biscuit.
Oh, yes.
And often leaves me still quite emotional now after all this time, because I know without him, I wouldn't be alive today. I actually work as a children's diabetes nurse. So my job is to help care, support and educate children and families that have got type 1 diabetes. So having Magic means I can basically carry on my job here. Without him, I would be testing my blood glucose level every 20 or 30 minutes to try and preempt what was going to happen. With magic, I don't have to do that, which means I can carry on doing my job. But it also means that I'm actually being safe with patients and I'm not likely to collapse, when I'm in the middle of a consultation with them, which is not only embarrassing for me, but actually it's giving the wrong message to the patients that you can still live life to the full, even though you've got diabetes. What are you doing? So this is Magic telling me he wants me to do a blood glucose test. So I'll ask Magic to fetch my kit. Fetch kit. Good boy. And then I'll check my blood sugar to see actually what is going on. Good boy, Magic. And the blood glucose is 5.5, so his target is 4.7. So he's telling me that in the next 20-30 minutes, he thinks my blood glucose level is going to be too low. Magic sleeps by my bed, so he's always close by me, although actually he can detect a change in my blood glucose level even when I'm upstairs and he's downstairs. But he sleeps by my bed, and what will happen is he will wake up overnight and tell me to test. Before I got Magic, I would be up every hour, day and night, trying to check my blood glucose level and to try and preempt when these episodes would happen. That meant that I was exhausted. Many a time I would be too afraid to go to sleep in case I had an episode and wouldn't wake up from them. Other times I'd be too exhausted. I didn't care if I was going to die overnight. I just wanted to, close my eyes and get some sleep. So what Magic has allowed me to do is I can go to bed and not be afraid that I'm never going to wake up in the morning. I'm going to go to bed and my husband doesn't have to worry that when he wakes up in the morning, I'm not going to be dead next to him. And simple things like that, is very difficult to put into words, but that's exactly what having Magic means, is that I can have an ordinary life, do ordinary things, and I've got an amazing companion that's going to follow me all the way through it.
I've been so impressed by the progress that's been made in this field that I wanted to find out why its potential hasn't been properly recognised and why it isn't receiving the funding it deserves. I went to see my old colleague, the Health Secretary for England, Jeremy Hunt. I started by asking why it was that the Health Service hasn't so far got behind this incredibly promising work.
I think probably ideas like this sometimes don't get looked at as quickly as they should because they get put in the quackery box, when actually what we're doing now, what you're doing, is saying, well, let's look at the science. Let's actually see whether these new ways of doing things are scientifically valid. And sometimes when you do that, you get a surprise.
I mean, literally from 2004, this work has been peer-reviewed and been available and published, and actually a lot of doctors involved in cancer treatment have been absolutely certain there is something really rather unique and special about what's been going on. It's been the devil's own business to get medical professionals on a wider scale to say, let's have a look at this. Do you think this says something about the resistance to investment in innovation at times that comes from the medical profession in the NHS?
Well, I wouldn't characterise the NHS as not being innovative, but sometimes nonetheless, when you have something that is so unorthodox as this, I mean, I could imagine that lots of doctors' heart will miss a beat at the thought of using a dog to help you detect cancer. But then, as doctors and scientists, they need to look at the evidence.
So instead of it being dogs, I was able to say to you or to anybody from the medical profession, what we have here is a laboratory that detects cancer earlier and more accurately than any of the existing medical tests. What do you think would be the natural reaction to that without the word dogs in it?
Well, of course, it's the dogs bit that I think, as I say, probably causes one or two people's heart rate to miss a beat or two. But Iain, I will personally look at the results of this research when it comes through. One of our jobs as MPs is sometimes to question orthodoxies and look at different ways of doing things that possibly the establishment has swept under the carpet or not wanted to look at. So if this research is good, then I want to know about it, and I will certainly look at it carefully.
The work of our pioneering researchers in this field doesn't just have the potential to save lives, but also to save our NHS many millions of pounds if it's properly funded. We need to recognise that we can still reimagine our centuries-old relationship with dogs and find new ways to make use of their absolutely extraordinary abilities.
He's a good boy. Come on then, let's go.